Well, the costs are quite substantial. I mean, the first part is that they're going to have to pay a lot of money to integrate Crimea into the Russian Federation. But that is small change compared to the overall picture. The most important loss to Russia is that if the purpose was to integrate Ukraine, then they have now lost Ukraine. There is no way that a government in Kiev is going to willingly unite with Russia to form a Eurasian Union that Putin so much desires. They may still do it with military occupation, but that will be incredibly costly and difficult to sustain. Another part of the cost that the Kremlin is incurring now is that it has re-energized NATO. That, I mean, a few months ago looked like it was headed for slow death. Now NATO has re-energized, and it has a purpose that is in tune with its charter, which has not been the case for a number of years. And NATO is now moving closer to the heartlands of Russia than it has ever been before. So that's not very happy. The third part of the cost is that Russia has attempted to lock a stranglehold on European gas markets for the past 10, 15 years. And now the European Union is finally galvanizing itself to reduce dependence on Russian gas. So that will hurt Gazprom over the coming years, not immediately, but down the road very badly. And then you can just go along the borders and see the government in Azerbaijan has been spooked by this. The government in Kazakhstan knows that the northern third of the country is populated by Russians, who may now also want to return home to Russia. And internationally, China did not like this at all, and Russia is risking becoming a rogue state. So the list of costs to the Kremlin for doing this is very long and very substantial. Well, this is the major question, and there really has to be some substantial benefits, and there are, surprisingly. Most obvious, obviously, is that Mr. Putin's popularity has gone sky high. It's over 80% now, which is the envy of politicians across the world. And it's quite clearly the case that he's presenting himself as the savior of Russia, and that goes down well with the Russian electorate. And it's not only the case that Russian state media is completely controlled and just touting his message. Putting Russia back on the map and making Russia strong and respected again is something that plays well with Russians across the board. So that's one important benefit to the Kremlin. Another important benefit is that even before this, the Russian economy was headed for hard times. And we expect that hardship is going to spread amongst the Russian population. And before the Crimea and the conflict with Ukraine, it was looking like dissatisfaction with the promises that Putin made when he was elected president in 2012. Those promises will now not be kept. And dissatisfaction with that threatened to spread dissent and disobedience into the regions. You might have had real outbreak of rallies that were anti-regime in the regions. Now, Mr. Putin can blame all of that on the West and on economic sanctions, saying, I'm trying to protect you all, but the West is out to undermine Russia and to throw us back in time. And this is all the fault of the evil West. So there's another benefit to him. And it goes on like that. Now he can finally has legitimacy to deal with what he now the other day referred officially to as the fifth column of independent liberal media and of opposition to his regime. So we're going to see increased repression inside the Russian Federation against everybody who is against the regime. He has instructed the Federal Security Service to make a distinction between acceptable opposition to the regime, which is tolerated, and those that are only out to incite hatred and to spread dissent. And those are going to be hunted by the security services now. So there is some very ominous messages here for the remnants of liberal media and liberal opposition in Russia. That also plays into the hands of Mr. Putin. So what we're looking at essentially is that the Putin regime is scoring a lot of benefits out of this, and the price is going to have to be paid by Russia and by the Russians, and that price will be heavy and it will be long term. But that seems to be of little concern to the men in the Kremlin. Well, what is happening at the moment is that there seems to be a scenario for eastern Ukraine that is similar to that of Crimea, i.e., you foment dissent, you have pro-Russian demonstrators agitating against the regime in Kiev or the government in Kiev and demanding that Russia should come to their rescue. And there is plenty of evidence, according to numerous observers, that many of these protesters are paid, they are bussed in. Some cases, like when some people stormed the opera house in Kharkiv, believing it to be the mayor's office, these people don't know where they are, they only know what they're supposed to do. So they're actively sort of a covert operation to foment dissent and to call for, like people did in Donetsk, a People's Republic of Donetsk, and then call for the Russian army to intervene. Invasion will not arrive until there has been substantial bloodshed that they can refer to. So the next step we're looking at is violent confrontations between Ukrainian security forces and pro-Russian demonstrators, thugs hired by the Kremlin. And if you have a large number of people being killed in such skirmishes, then the Kremlin can say, now we really have to intervene to prevent further bloodshed, because the illegitimate government in Kiev, as they say, is not capable of preserving peace and order in its own country. So we now have to protect the Russians. And that is when the Russian army will roll across the border. It remains preferable to the Kremlin to solve this in a peaceful manner, that the regime, the government in Kiev, accepts a federalization whereby several regions of Ukraine de facto are spun off the state of Ukraine, not by law, but de facto are allied with Russia. I don't think that is possible, because they don't have the same local support that they did in Crimea, where more than half of the population was ethnically Russian. That is not the case in eastern Ukraine. So it won't be as easy and unviolent as it was in the Crimea. It will be violent, it will be ugly, and it will probably end in a dismemberment of the Republic of Ukraine into a status where it will preserve its nominal status as a sovereign state, but that sovereignty will be very heavily compromised, and there will be bloodshed. It's not a very happy forecast.